Live from Thra, this is Derailed Trains of Thought. Hello, folks. Welcome to Derailed Trains of Thought.
Hi, I feel like there's lots of things alive around me. I mean, like, obviously there's trees and things, but like...
I'm a little afraid of who else might be listening to us today.
Yeah.
I feel like everything and anything might be.
Yeah, I see kind of eyes, I hear some... And over there's kind of moving ground with, I don't know, like mouths or something. I'm not going to go walk that direction.
Yeah, don't go walking over there. I think that'd be a bad idea. But anyway, welcome, folks. This is your premier podcast on storytelling.
Derailed Trains of Thought. I am Nick Hayden.
And I am Timothy Deal.
We are your hosts as we explore the world of story.
Wherever the podcast may decide to take us to explore it.
Which is Thra this time.
And hopefully we will keep you in thrall.
Rum-bum. Fun times, everyone.
How are you doing, Nick?
Not too bad. It's cold, suddenly cold and dark.
Back home?
Yeah.
Yeah. Indiana, sadly, only gets like 1 month of fall.
So this is kind of nice. I mean, at least it's a lot brighter and stuff.
At least right now, anyway.
Yes, right now.
I mean, there's that beautiful pink tree over there.
It's interesting. It's much more colorful than now when I back home. When I go home from work, it's like dark almost because winter.
It's winter.
Yeah.
Winter is coming.
Winter is here. No.
Wait. Wrong fantasy series.
Yes.
Anyway, so we'll stop yakking now and we'll get on.
Get on. Get on with it, buddy.
Anyway, let's move along now into story school.
Move along.
Shut up. For story school today, we got inspired by Dark Crystal Age of Resistance, which we're going to do, I promise, we're going to do a weekly hijack soon, if it isn't out already, before this comes out.
Dark Crystal Age of Ultron. Be interesting.
It would be different. Bunch of puppets fighting a bunch of robots.
I'd watch it.
I'll watch it too, just to see how they would pull it off.
Yeah. Anyways, completely sidetracked.
Yes, not at all what we're actually going to talk about today. Today, this was your idea. It's kind of talking about the range of emotions that can be present in a story.
Especially in one story. Most stories have just a normal amount of emotion, like, oh, it's just a normal day sort of stuff. I guess let's start with the other side real quick.
Okay.
Start with, there are some stories that are very laser focused on developing one emotion. You got your Hitchcock film, which is very like everything's designed for one emotion.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously when we're talking about a range of emotions, some people choose, hey, horror does this, like I just want to freak you out constantly. Some comedies are like, I'm going to do as many ridiculous belly laughs and we're not going to take anything seriously.
Film noir is like grim and gritty and darks and shadows and yeah.
So that's just kind of a starting point. And then you have most of your shows that are just like a nice palette. And then you have some things that have this very wide range. More than even your normal, like, oh, it's sad and it's happy. You got your dramas on TV where it's like, oh, it's sad and it's happy and there's a normal range. But like they push the sort of the dark edges and the good light edges, both convincingly. We'll just use Dark Crystal as an example in this case. There's one episode, 6, 7?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know the season verbatim yet.
But anyways, where on one hand, there's this ridiculous scene with this good Skeksis and this puppet show and like some of the funny stuff we've seen all season.
Some of the funny stuff, yeah.
Hupp is throwing up and I mean...
They're doing the ridiculous opera thing.
I mean, it's like crazy.
Like almost something it's the closest I've ever seen Dark Crystal come to Fraggle Rock.
Yeah, exactly.
At least in terms of humor. There's some of the like wishy-washy spirituality of Fraggle Rock gets into Dark Crystal too, but that's a little different.
But on the other hand, in the same episode, you have basically spiders possessing people like it ends with like this horror scene of all these people walking around, these spiders, and there's things on their faces like from some science
And aren't
fiction
their
movie.
eyes glowing?
And eyes glow, yeah, and it was to me a really interesting portrayal of the wide range of certain types of shows and books. And I think creators can just capture both kind of the deepest horrors of people and like the fancies of people. I think Roald Dahl, Charlie Chocolate Factory, James the Giant Peach, does this really well. The sense that like, if you read the books, like sometimes like, oh, it's fanciful as a chocolate factory and all the crews, and then like some really messed up stuff, dark. Even in the movie version, you got with Gene Wilder, you got that weird tunnel scene right after you have the like, the scene singing about the chocolate factory and everything. I mean, I think it's the sense of the kind of a primal, almost childlike ability to tap into emotion.
Do you think it's something that really has to come out in a fantastical sort of work?
I guess that's where I see it normally, because I guess it's where you have works where it strips away some of the normalcy of certain emotions. Like I feel like I get it at least more from another person does it, and I guess this would be less fantastical, somewhat. Dickens.
Okay.
Dickens do a very wide range, like Christmas Carol. He got some pretty dark. He's a gringy, and then you have these scenes with the Cratchit family. It's like our friend Greg calls almost too sweet. Like they're just
picture perfect, kind of like heartwarming.
But like it's like Norman Rockwell, but like worse or better or whatever.
Right, or better.
And I think there's an ability of some creators to really tap into the things to like lean completely into a single emotion, but be able to also move back and forth in a way that doesn't feel like whiplash.
Don Bluth movies are also kind of like that. Like An American Tale. It's been a long time since I've seen it, but The Land Before Time, Secret of Nim. I mean, he was an animator that went into some dark territory, but also had some very light, cartoonish kind of moments. And they kind of weave in and out of that kind of stuff.
And I think sometimes in the visual mediums, animation works really well for this. Animation is already a little more primal than something a little more realistic. And especially if you watch it as kids, you're just like, a lot of kids' worst nightmares are like from early Disney movies, the elephants on parade, that sort of. Some of those inhibitions from you get in realistic dramas are gone, and they just push it a little farther.
Yeah, I wonder if that's because it's something that's more abstract, and so you get to pour a lot more artistry into it that really taps into that, because there's something about cartoons that just really taps if it's done well.
Yeah.
I don't remember if I've ever mentioned this before, and maybe I have. One of my grandfathers, who is a real kind of military gruff guy, whenever we would watch, there'd be certain cartoons if we'd be watching, he'd join us, like Looney Tunes, or I still remember him laughing at, when this is an animation, but certain parts of Muppet Christmas Carol, and he just, that kind of universalism, even though we didn't really have a lot in common, but we could enjoy a good cartoon or a great Gonzo falling off a building scene.
And I think and again, I don't think every story needs this giant range of emotion. Sometimes it's really good to have to really narrow it down, and a lot of times people just do whatever. But I think as a storyteller, how do you tap into those? How do you make horror more horrifying, or happiness? How do you make the audience, the reader, feel those things as deeply as some of these guys who are very good at doing the range do? I have some possible answers, but I think that's something interesting as a creator to say, hey, how do we make them feel that deeply and do it in a way that's not... Because a lot of times you have these movies, like, it'll be a comedy and you'll have your token, serious scene.
Yeah.
And you're just like, oh, whatever. You don't really feel it because it's there just for the plot. Or you have a serious movie, you'll have Hamlet, and then you'll have Talking to Skull, and you're laughing because you need a break.
Yeah.
But this sort of range in one thing is a different beast. It's like we can actually exist in the full palette of human emotions in one thing.
I think earnestness is an important ingredient here. If your audience knows that you, as the storyteller, are really truly meaning this world that you're developing. It's not just kind of the cynical, we're just here to have fun kind of thing. But no, there's actual significance to the story elements as they go on.
And I think I would say Dickens, his ability is because he's just super earnest. Like when you read Christmas Carol, you feel like Dickens fully feels everything he's writing. No, I don't know if he is, but you get the sense that he's a guy who absorbs characters and he can laugh with the people who are laughing and he can cry with the people who are crying just because he writes that way. And I don't know if he is. I don't know enough about his life, but he writes with that sort of verve, I guess.
Like he has that same sort of excitement as the writer, as the reader is going to have reading it.
Yeah, so exactly. And his language is set up that way.
Yeah, there's kind of a shared excitement between the storyteller and the audience.
And I wonder if that's some of it too. Even, I mean, with animation, with puppetry, there is that more of that, like, less space between the audience, maybe, because it's a little more abstract.
Possibly. I mean, I think there is definitely an element to both those where the storyteller is creating everything that you see on stage, which I guess is true, or on screen, which I guess is true for general live action movies too. But I don't know. I wonder if there's a difference there in terms of like the depth that they are naturally putting onto the screen. I don't know.
Okay, and you know, anime does this all the time. They'll have like the deep, dark scenes and then like some ridiculous, like love and peace.
Well, and
after you just like killed your friends or whatever.
Some animes will kind of, it's almost like
and this
bipolar.
Sometimes they can get a little bipolar, and you know, I think to do it well, you have to make it both feel like neither thing's an interlude.
Yeah,
neither thing's an excuse. And sometimes anime, it feels not quite as smooth.
Although I tell you though, if you do it right, you can wind up talking about emotional range. You can have your audience feeling a lot of emotions within the space of a single scene. Since we're talking about anime, let me talk a little bit about My Hero Academia. And
okay,
I'm going to spoil a scene from like late season 2. So if maybe skip ahead like 2 minutes if you don't want to hear it. But the main character is mentored by this guy called All Might. Okay. In My Hero Academia, it's a series about basically superhero high school. And it's very fun. And one of the great things about the main character is that he's very earnest, and he's taught by a mentor named All Might, who is also very earnest. He's kind of like a Superman sort of type. All his attacks come with a state name like Missouri Smash. And things
nice.
They'll say that in like, broken English because Japanese think English sounds cool. But the thing about All Might is that he's given his pupil, the main character, some of his power, in part because he's losing his own ability to control his superpower.
Okay.
And there's this final climactic fight when All Might fights with his arch rival. And his arch rival can tell that he's losing a hold of his power because he's not as good as he used to be. At some point, All Might kind of channels the last of it into one final attack. And the villain can see, oh man, I'm not going to survive this. This is the end of my superpower. And this is like All Might's basically this is his last attack of all his power into his. And he yells as he does it, you can imagine like the kind of the anime, like fast moves and quick camera shots and stuff. And when he connects, he's yelling, United States of Smash! And when he connects, there's like this big, like basically the force of his hit creates like hurricanes type winds. And then you see like the flame that had been representing his power just kind of goes out and he says, goodbye. One for all. That's the name of his power. And so you get this thrill of like a super cool fight scene, the humor of what the ridiculous attack name he just yelled out, and like this little bittersweet sadness, and like he just sacrificed his basically superpower to defeat the bad guy once and for all. So you got like three emotions, and again, it's silly, and it's inwardly it's silly, but because they're so earnest with all these other factors going into the scene, you get to experience the full gambit of emotions there.
And I wonder if the trick to making, to communicating emotion earnestly is to, as a writer, as creator, to get to the kernel of it. I mean, like horror writers are very good at figuring out what really freaks them out, and comedy writers get to the heart of the joke. But to have a writer who can get to the heart of what freaks you out and the heart of what is the goodness of family and the heart of...
Or what it means to be a hero.
And a writer who can get to multiple centers in one work, I think is cool. I'm not sure, again, not everything requires that, but I think,
it's an impressive feat to be able to...
Yeah.
Whether over the course of a story to like really hone in on the center of who this character is and who that character is, and then maybe bring them all together at one moment,
and being able to feel it yourself and not just this has to happen next. Yeah, I think that what ruins it for people is when it's like, oh, I know this is connected. This is
this scene.
this is the sad scene. This is the happy scene. This is again, those still carry emotion because it just does, because people reuniting are just good, or people losing something are just bad, or what, it just, we empathize, but to crank it up a notch and strip other things away to get into the middle of it. And these are the things that as an audience sometimes the range, if it touches the center of your emotion, it'll make people cry about things that other people are like, why is that sad? They're seeing in that the core of what they're already feeling.
It's connecting to something that they know about in real life, or
and have felt, or currently are feeling deeply about.
Yeah, that's true.
I'll take my I don't really cry much at movies, but like the almost crying at the end of Les Mis, and it was the movie, and it was largely, I think, partly just being a dad at that point, because Jean Valjean's. I mean, there's certain things that once you've experienced, I think, then you react differently to. And so maybe these writers are very good at it, have experienced a lot of things and are not afraid to bear them openly. I don't know. I'm guessing.
I mean, I think that makes sense. I don't know what to follow that up with exactly. No, talking about like how a moment can be kind of comedic in one sense, but also serious in another sense. I imagine a challenge there is to, with comedy particularly, comedy is naturally helping people see something amusing of the situation, which the characters themselves may not be quite as aware of. Like you have a scene where characters are fighting, and the characters might be really mad, but it might actually be really funny for an audience perspective. But then if you can I was thinking about this the other day because I knew we were talking about this, and I was listening to my podcast Moving Right Along, which is currently going through The Great Muppet Caper. There's a scene where Kermit and Piggy fight, and it's really funny. They got a really cute couple, how Kermit and Piggy are, and that couple. And then, but at one moment, Piggy turns her back to the camera, and you can tell she's actually kind of hurt. So it goes from this the audience perspective is like, oh, this is fun, to like, oh, poor thing. And okay, calm down. Kermit lets her know, okay, I'm sorry, we went too far, and then they make up. So again, you've got a spectrum of emotions for the audience in a short scene, but when to turn the corner from humorous to more heartfelt.
That makes me think, and just other things I think you're saying that, is that it seems like modern, again, there'll be more visual, but even probably books are much better at being real, helping you feel the punch of sad things, of broken things, than like what Dickens does is amazing. Is like he does have that saccharine sweet scenes, which comes off to some modern eyes sometimes as being kind of hokey or kind of too good. It's hard. And we're not very good at communicating good, I don't think.
Yeah, not nearly as well.
Whimsy sometimes, but even whimsy tends to be a little more scientific nowadays.
Yeah, yeah, that's probably true. I mean, it's a little easier to communicate it like at the beginning or the end of something. As opposed to like kind of a break in the middle of a story to appreciate something good. And
because like Miyazaki is very good at helping you fully feel small moments. Like the goodness of sitting down and eating. Things that we take for granted. And that takes a certain skill to make you thankful for things that are normal.
And he can include those kind of moments of, what was the word you used? Normalcy?
Normalcy?
Normalcy, however you say it.
I don't know.
in stories that are otherwise big and adventuresome and fantastical, and which I guess is not quite the same thing. Well, I mean, I guess, is it an emotion just to enjoy the quiet moments? I guess it kind of is.
I think that's still a range of emotion, both for the big heartfelt ones and the quiet ones. And again, you feel like Miyazaki understands those things. You feel like he appreciates them so he can communicate. I don't know that you can communicate something. You can fake a communication of things through copying.
Copying,
other people, like the beats. I'm not sure you can fake these things that you haven't actually felt in the same way. Maybe you can.
That makes sense. I mean, it's a kind of emotional intelligence. I mean, I can vouch being currently in a dating relationship, there are definitely elements of romance that I think I probably understand way better now than I ever did from the outside of it.
Yeah.
And obviously, I have a lot to learn, don't get me wrong. But yeah, being inside of that sort of emotions, circumstances is, way different than just repeating something you've seen in other movies.
Yeah. And again, repeating things you see in other movies or kind of the outside version can still communicate just fine, but there's certain, scenes of sorrow that I feel like when I write are just trying because I haven't suffered the death of someone super close to me, sort of thing. And other people have. They I can probably write it maybe realistically, but it might not be raw.
That's true. I remember talking back in college with some friends when we were watching Naruto. It's a series it's an anime with ninja and like crazy superhuman kind of abilities. People get thrown against walls and, all this kind of fake pain. But then I remember one particular battle sequence where one of the characters was fighting these sound ninja. And at one point basically gives them essentially what looked like a really piercing earache.
Okay.
And we all agreed that looked way more painful than some of these other crazy things like getting, zapped by lightning or getting buffeted by wind power or something, because we know what an earache feels like.
Yeah.
So to be able to purposely inflict something like that, everyone who watched the scene just like, ooh.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's a distinct difference between knowing what something is like and kind of given an approximation of it.
With in horror, anyone can make some disgusting creature that kills things in violent ways, but to really get under people's skins, you do something,
just subtly creepy.
Just subtly creepy that everyone's creeped out about. Whether it's just the shadow that flits by. I can't think of one. I mean, Doctor Who actually has done this pretty well in various ways.
The idea of there's the silence, the monsters that you don't
see.
You can't see. You don't remember as soon as you turn your eyes away from.
Because it's the not knowing that's scarier than the anything else.
Yeah.
Or I used to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Doctor Who can do a pretty good range sometimes between
they can
like legitimate whimsy and whatever with kind of brooding or
Blink.
Sorrow.
Blink has it's got these sorrowful moments to really scary moments to really goofy funny moments, kind of quirky.
And it all flows, and partly just because Who had created the sense that you can get away with all that in an episode. But the best Doctor Who episodes have quite the range sometimes. I mean, obviously, you give a whole series, you can do a whole, Babylon 5 has a large range, and it does, but
that's a whole series.
Find a whole one episode that can do the ups and downs. And some of those, and when you do it, sometimes there's the best episode everyone remembers because it got me right there, and it was hilarious.
Yeah. Or it was really exciting, but then it also made me laugh, and yeah.
And again, I think, obviously even emotionally, horror, laughing, those things, but the quiet moments, the sort of familial moments are sometimes even harder because they're even more insubstantial. They don't shout as loud.
That's a good way to say it.
And to make people, to have that range where you even make people, do some of that, the uneasiness, the awkward. Have you ever been someone that made you feel awkward?
Yeah.
There are, but it's not, you don't see it a lot. You see people being awkward.
Yeah, okay. I was going to say, you mean office humor kind of level awkward?
Okay, season 1 made me feel awkward. I mean, after that, they were just awkward and it was funny. But there are some seasons where just, I think early episodes were just I feel awkward even watching this. Anyways, it was just a topic, having watched Dark Crystal, I'm really impressed how wide it is. And I know lots of shows can do that. It just struck me as even just a little farther than you do see in some shows. And I was curious of analyzing, how do you do that?
Yeah. And I think you tapped into a couple of things. The earnestness is important. The having experience in what the real emotion is makes a huge difference.
And being able to write it real, not using the conventions
that you've seen somewhere else.
Or you can start with conventions, but I think conventions can only get you so far, even if
it has to transcend it somehow.
Yeah.
In a deeper level.
And I do think there's a certain childlikeness that helps. A sort of I joke sometimes, kids will cry, they don't get something, they'll just break down crying. And adults don't. people have trained ourselves not to. But they're crying on the inside. They just find a different way to deal with it. I mean, adults don't wear their emotion on the sleeve in the same way little kids do.
Right.
And I think there's a certain amount of little kidness that helps and that's why I think animation does it better. You kind of tap into those more
And I wonder,
primal stuff.
that kind of makes me think that in a way, storytelling can really be a great outlet for adults who need to kind of remember what that emotion is. Because as we go through our day-to-day grind, we can try to bury it and numb it a lot.
And it's very beneficial for the reader too to be able to experience emotions through books, through movies, to kind of either just enliven their life or even maybe process things.
Yeah.
And they always say that, I mean, the study's been done that readers are more empathetic than non-readers. They've learned to empathize with.
You've been in someone else's head.
You've been in someone else's head.
Yeah. And sometimes a good story can help us remember something that we knew emotionally on a deep level that we haven't connected with in a long time.
Yeah. There's a lot of power emotionally with stories.
Yeah.
All right.
Good stuff. Really good stuff. So with that, we will move on into soundtrack. It took me a while to figure out what to go with here because there's actually some songs on OC Remix that have a broad range. And Nick said you had the similar problem where you couldn't find something that had a range but was short
enough for the podcast.
Yeah.
You give me 8 minutes, I gotcha.
Yeah. So I wound up just going a completely different route. This remix is from The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening, second Zelda song in a row, remix in a row. So that's unusual.
Is this from the new album?
No.
Okay.
No, this is an older one from 2005. The remix is called Clash at the Mountains. It's a remix from a song on the original soundtrack, Tal Tal Heights.
Okay.
I just went with it because mountains are a range.
Yeah. Fun times.
Fun times. This one is by Zircon, and it's a fun techno-y Zircon kind of beat.
Awesome.
So, hope you enjoy. And we're back.
Hello, that was nice.
Yeah.
And for all you who are doing Derailed Trains bingo, make sure you mark pun times twice this episode.
Oh?
Yeah.
Oh, because we had some puns.
Yeah, it's for
before.
our bingo or drinking game, I guess. Root beer only.
Yeah, there you go. Well, anyway, moving on. Our next segment today will be... Previously on. Previously on is a segment where we talk about things, revisit old subjects from past story schools, and try to throw some new lights, look at it in a new way, but just kind of a brief touch on something. It didn't justify doing a whole new story school for it.
And it's, as Tim can testify, I've been like having all kind of random ideas like, did we talk about this angle? Because it's been a lot of episodes now.
Yeah,
So our previously
over 100.
ons are like, I think this is new.
Maybe we'll try and
But this one is. So you want to do yours first or me?
you do yours first.
All right, so I was going back to, we talked about shared stories back in episode 72.
72.
And I was just thinking about oral storytelling. I'm sure we touched on it back then.
By shared stories, we mean shared experience.
Yes,
Like,
you're all watching the movie together. You're sitting around the family watching, or sitting around the family.
sitting around the family sitting around the TV enjoying
Watching a
a
Christmas
movie.
special. In that case, but I think of the Christmas episode.
Probably, or going to the movie and enjoying it. The theatrical experience means a lot.
You're all reading a book together. Unremarkable Squire.
Which, this is something that me and Janelle have been doing. It's been fun coming up with all the voices. Which I hear our friend David is also really good at doing some of the voices.
Yeah,
for
I hear his
Unremarkable Squire.
Boozle and Snivelwit are legendary. Is what I hear. I've not heard them, but
I mean, you have a lot of very colorful characters, so it's a fun book to read out loud for sure.
But anyway, I stumbled across this article talking about an essay by Ursula Le Guin about communication.
So you found an article talking about the essay by Ursula
Yes,
Le
it's kind of
Guin?
weird, but it quotes the essay substantially. So I'm like, I'm just going to act like this by Ursula Le Guin.
Okay.
And I liked it because it kind of put a almost spiritual sense to communication, which I thought resonated at least with me in a Christian worldview, and added something extra to shared stories.
Okay.
So I might just quote a few things here. Because she makes the point that talking to each other is not just I talk, you listen, you talk, I listen. But there's every time I'm talking, we're both sharing simultaneously.
I'm having flashbacks to my communication theory classes, which I hated at the time, but like it comes up to my mind more often than I ever expected.
So she called it intersubjectivity. But there's a couple cool quotes in here that I kind of wanted to share and kind of just talk about. And I like this. So speech connects us so immediately and vitally because it is a physical bodily process to begin with, not a mental one or a spiritual one, wherever it may end. And I've been thinking about this because I'm teaching this Bible study on Christians and social media. And going into it, I was thinking largely the danger of social media is that it's not we are embodied people. We are meant to be in a space and a time.
Okay.
We're meant to be physical. We're not Gnostics. We don't think physicality is bad.
Sure. Yeah.
And the fact that even, Ursula Le Guin, who's not Christian, there's this physicality to speaking to each other that's more than just machines giving back and forth.
Passing information.
It's more than information.
Okay.
And it just added kind of another level to reading out loud to your kid, which is say, reading out loud to your kids before they're 5 like does wonders on like every known scale and all
Really?
kind of stuff. Yeah. Reading to your kids is one of the, I might get this wrong, but I think is one of the primary correlations with doing well in school. Like the more words they hear before they're 5, the better.
Okay.
If you have books around and read to them, they learn to love books.
Not just talking to them, but actually reading.
Yeah. I mean, obviously talking to them, more words you talk to them, the better.
Okay.
Too.
Yeah.
But reading to them does a whole nother level of things, which is also just fascinating because our brains are wired for words and for books in a way that I don't think evolutionists have figured out how to explain. Because like 2-year-olds learn language like nothing.
Yeah.
And we can, anyways, that's neither here nor there. But she also makes this point that a lot of things in nature oscillate together. Okay, this is going to sound weird, but like you put 2 clocks next to each other and the pendulums will start going together.
They'll start syncing up.
That anyway, she talks about humans start syncing up, talking to each other. It's again kind of timey-wimey, but I thought it was an interesting sort of how words change each other. And again, I just like it because we believe God talking changes things. We do believe there is a power to words spoken, not just thought. thoughts are not enough. It's got to be
God said that there
God
be light.
said that there's a physicality to. Okay, no, God, you can get heretical if you say physicality, but Jesus was the Word. There's a sense that things need to be embodied, and that you start putting that with even in text in a book, but also just make them stories with your kids, that having conversations. There's something you lose if everything's only through machines. That's just not really an answer, just some thoughts that I thought were interesting and added to that sort of sense of, I think you could go with a whole Christian theology of obviously words and talking. And I think we mentioned a book by Vern Poythresh one time about.
You sure you got that name right?
Not sure, but it's something like Poythresh.
Poythresh?
Something like that. Close. It's Vern.
Vern. Question about that then. You make a good point that it's something more than just passing on information through a tool. Do you think then that there's a difference between just reading a book out loud? Because if you're reading a book out loud, there's a tool there, technically.
Yeah.
As opposed to just the oral storytelling that's just purely, not necessarily improvisational, but purely, you know what I mean? The oral tradition.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Before I answer that, you remind me of something, and I'll try to answer. So apparently, I read this somewhere that some early church father saw another guy reading the Bible silent to himself, and he was kind of scandalized because the Bible was always read out loud in community. And I thought that was a fascinating concept, because all Bible study now is silent
mostly
yourself,
unless you're in a small group or that sort of thing.
And I think, have we lost something by not just reading out loud in large sections? I mean, all the epistles were just letters. Read this in the church and share it with the other church.
Well, because back then, not everyone there wasn't a printing press, so it had to be a communal thing.
Yeah, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with this studying it, but I think that's certainly part of why it's written down.
Yeah.
I mean, but to your question, which I've half forgotten now, there probably is a difference, and I don't probably in degrees or what the purpose is. Obviously, when something's put down solidly, there's less of a interaction between audience and whatever. But you're still hoping for some sort of interaction, even when it's written. But obviously, an oral storyteller can play like actors.
Yeah,
can tone things, just
tweak things, make it fresh in the moment.
It's more musical.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I highly suspect most oral storytellers would write it down before they memorize their story, and then be able to perform it. I mean, I guess if your voice is an instrument, most musicians nowadays, they're going to put it down. They're not just always going to constantly improvise. They would at least put down the different chords if they're a guitarist.
Yeah.
At least when they're first learning the song. I'm sure at some point they have to write the thing down.
But there's a communal, to jump over into music, there's a communal nature to singing in church. And some churches have is much more focused on the stage.
Yeah.
But there's a whole debate, about trying to make sure the congregation is singing, because then it's everyone together
as opposed to a performance mentality.
Performance. And so you have this range of how words interact with how the listener and the spectator work together, or the creator and the spectator work together.
Yeah, yeah.
So again, not so much answers, just thoughts and meanderings that I thought didn't fit anywhere exactly, but relate to that shared experience. And I think, Audible is creating a whole nother generation that's more audio.
That's true.
In their interaction. I mean, it's not quite the same as being present, but it's...
Well, and podcasting is a form of storytelling that's exploding in recent years.
And Zach and I share a lot of stories that are podcasts that we don't read the same things, but we'll get together. Hey, did you hear, Roman Mars talk about picking peppers, or whatever?
Yeah.
So yeah,
interesting. Well, as usual, my idea wasn't as deep. But back in episode 56, we talked about taste. And, everyone has different tastes. And, but the sliver of thought that I thought might be fun to go back to that was, why do people enjoy cheese? Not just actual sharp
Velveeta,
or mozzarella, Gouda, but
Venezuelan goat cheese.
Exactly.
Yes.
Sorry, sir, we don't have that cheese here.
Do you have any cheese at all?
No, we do not. No Monty Python there now. But no, cheesy stories, cheesy entertainment. Why do people actually enjoy it? 'Cause when I say that, I mean that in a little different way than not just like highbrow, lowbrow, high culture, pop culture.
Are you talking like Hallmark sort of cheese? I mean, as one example.
Hallmark, that's one example. You know, we're almost into the Christmas movie season, and Hallmark is known for having like a plethora of cheesy Christmas movies. But I mean, also, this would also include like something you would see on Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Okay.
Like a super cheesy, like, I'm trying to think of one of my favorites. Oh, Cave Dwellers. Yeah, Ator, you know, it really over the top, like cheesy
So kind of guilty
fantasy.
pleasure. What people call guilty pleasures.
Yeah. I mean,
they don't overlap exactly.
the term is, it's some of a misnomer, but yes, movies, TV, I guess even some people would say book, like romance books.
Yeah.
Some people call those cheesy, but people enjoy that. So I guess my question is,
paint by the number fantasy novels.
yeah, but why do people enjoy it? I mean, there's a couple ways you could look at this. I guess the cynical way would be to say that it's just relaxing. You turn your brain off. You don't have to indulge.
Yeah, but that was not my first thought.
Okay, that's good. So what is your first thought?
Comfort. I really think it's like an old blanket. Like, Linus and his blankie is like, you don't have to think very much. I mean, that's certainly probably part of it, that it's safe.
Yeah.
But I think also it's just sort of like chocolate or popcorn, or again, we talk about popcorn flicks too, which is a little different. But I think it's just like, it's cheesy, it's overdone, it's there just for these certain highlights, but you really just want those certain highlights, and you don't want art, you just want something fun, something to remind you those things that why you watch this sort of things anyways.
It's something relaxing in a sense. Like, I mean, we want obviously even popcorn to like be kind of challenging moving forward, but you're not every day going to be in the mood for an Avengers Endgame where you have big stakes and all the special effects are actually really impressive. Sometimes you just want to slip into something that is not going to be challenging in any kind of way, but is still kind of goofy and enjoyable.
And I think there's something to be said for just the playfulness of it. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong to just play around. Mm-hmm. Again, this is in a different sense, but in the sense that like you're just tinkering. I mean, passively.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
like bad movies. It's not good. It's ridiculous. And again, some people watch them because they want to be cynical and make fun of them. But sometimes it's just like, you know what? I like the crazy things. I like the over the top, the bad. It's just sort of like, I'm not going to take it seriously. I'm just going to fiddle around.
And sometimes we see even, I mean, it's fun to see the amateur ones, the ones that are just kind of playing. They're not super great film. But it's also sometimes to see like professionals do it. Like, see The Expendables.
Exactly. Yeah, Expendables is a blast.
That's a high budget. You got Arnold Schwarzenegger and Bruce Willis doing cameos, and headed by Sylvester Stallone, and Chuck Norris makes an appearance. And it's super, but it's so cheesy action, popcorny kind of stuff.
But its whole purpose is not to. It's a blanket. It's a nice, it's just a warm, fuzzy feeling. It's that
wrapped up in an explosion.
It's that path in the woods you take there's nothing new, but it's familiar. And that would be my good take on it, is that, I mean, if that's all you do, I don't know, maybe arguments that that's all it is, whatever.
Well, if that's all the art that you're taking in, then you're probably, if you eat too much cheese, you're going to become kind of fat and gross and and
we're not saying, go watch something literary necessarily. We'll have that discussion later.
But I mean, like, even your popcorn entertainment should have a balance.
Yes.
Like, I mean, that's one that, like I said, you want to see even superhero flicks take on challenging subject matter and try to do new things and stuff like that. But there's nothing wrong within moderation of just the.
And it seems wrong, like, if you can't have fun watching or reading something, sometimes just semi-mindless fun. Is art only for education? I hope not.
Yeah. My dad's favorite movie is this ridiculous Dwayne Johnson, The Rock movie.
The great thing about The Rock
It's called it's called a rundown, and like my family constantly makes fun of it every time because it's like this. My sister's called the male equivalent of a chick flick, a man bam.
Yeah,
because it's two guys, goofy male humor mixed in with like taking it down a like drug cartel or something.
I think I've seen. Are they chefs or something? No,
not chefs. No,
maybe I've not seen this one.
It's in like South America or something.
I think I've seen it.
It's been a long time, but yeah.
It was the thing. My sibling, I think Zach can talk sometimes about Dwayne Johnson. The great thing about him is that he doesn't take himself seriously. He knows that he has a certain type of fun movie that he works really well in, and he just goes all in. Like, he's very earnest about it. Like, when he's into something, you're like, he's having a blast.
Or at least you feel like he is. Yeah. I imagine his background helps in a way. You know, I'll never be into the scene myself, but I've kind of... The internet has taught me a little bit from people who are into like nerdy things who are also into pro wrestling.
Yeah.
A little bit inside of why they enjoy it, about how pro wrestling itself has kind of this narrative, a story arc to it and stuff.
So is that cheese for you?
It's not, well, I guess I would consider it cheesy.
Yeah.
Yes. I still have no actual interest in watching it myself. But because I think I used to think pro wrestling was just like something rednecks got into until I found out like certain nerdy cultures really get into it. And I was like, oh, but why? What is it exactly?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, well, there's these character archetypes and they have their own arcs and things like that. And obviously it's cheesy. It's WWE. But apparently, there's a certain kind of charm to it for some people.
I can see that, yeah.
I mean, what can I say? I've already talked about the shonen anime I watch.
Yeah.
So it's not too different in some ways. I mean, I've got my limits. I'm not a Dragon Ball fan, but...
You just made fun of all our Dragon Ball fans.
I didn't make fun of them. I just said I'm not one of them.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I've talked about Kingdom Hearts enough. I can
get away with it.
Yeah, I can. Yeah. So anyway, with that in mind, go enjoy some cheesy... Oh, no, go read a cheesy comic book out loud to your kids.
Oh, I'll do that.
That'll be a good mix of the two previously on topics here. All right. Well, Nick, I think it's time for us to start wrapping things up here.
Well, so far it's been not too bad here.
Yeah, I mean,
I see a carriage coming.
Yeah, that seems really loud, and I hear some really high-pitched shrieks coming from inside.
That is not good.
No, that's probably not a good thing at all. So I vote we maybe see if we can find someplace underground. It might be a lot safer.
Yeah, there won't be anything bad underground.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. Well, before Nick gives you his soundtrack info, folks, I will let you know that you can subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify.
Leave us reviews if you would.
On all those places, or whichever one you use the most.
Yes. Or just on a sticky note in your office complex. That would work too.
As long as your coworkers see it and know that they should go check it out. Yeah, no, seriously though, spread the word. Word of mouth is a great advertiser, and we want to spread the love of storytelling and thinking way too deeply about storytelling to everyone.
And then join us for our weekly hijack, where we're going through the end of Babylon 5.
That's true. As we're
Season
recording,
5.
we're in the midst of Crusade. But yes, in terms of a release schedule, yes, we're getting near the end of season 5.
And you can watch it on Amazon Prime.
Go 90.
No, seriously, guys, if you've not watched Babylon 5 and you've heard us talk about it, go watch it.
Yes.
Even TKO.
All available for you on Amazon Prime.
All right. Anyways, for my soundtrack, I thought, since we're talking about range, I remember that Overclocked Remix had an album one time from Super Dodgeball, and they had songs from all the different countries that were dodge. I'm like, oh, that's a good range, and they were all supposed to be done in their different styles.
Cool.
But I picked the England one, so it's not as out there, but it goes through lots of kind of different phases. I thought that was kind of nice too. It's called Birmingham Beatdown, arranged by Ho-Ha. I know, I've never heard of Ho-Ha.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think it's pretty fun. I hope you enjoy it, and we need to get moving.
Yes, I agree. We need to move quickly. Thanks for listening to Derailed Trains of Thoughts. Until next time, this is Tim.
Isn't it?
Bye-bye.